It's been a long time since I've had a mouthwashing hoopla pop up in my radar. Mouthwashing could have been one of the most prolific and masterful horror pieces of its time if the dev team just stopped talking after it released. I don't know why you said it could have been one. It already is one. The last mouthwashing hoopla that I discussed was involving the artist that got harassed because they drew Anya in a really sexy way, even though Anya is a victim of sexual assault. She's also a fictional character, and all the developers did is to speak out against the people that harassed the artist. How dare they, right? But the issue doesn't just come from that Anya fan art. The issue comes from the developers making jokes out of the situation. The developers make this "he's sorry" meme out of Jimmy, the villain of the game who did all sorts of unspeakable things. This is very blatantly and obviously a joke. It's an insincere and desperate apology made with cutesy bubbly eyes to make it seem sympathetic. Anyone can tell that it's meant to be manipulative. They also made a cat plushie out of him. He's a fictional character, of course he gets a plushie. Itachi gets a plushie. He straight up massacred his whole entire clan. Under orders, but still. Kyubey gets plushies, and everyone wants to kill that creature on sight. This is nothing special. All making merchandise of highly controversial characters like this does is enable the losers who fawn over abusive fictional characters and excuse their every action because they're not real. I have no idea who these losers that you're talking about. They do exist, but their numbers are so minuscule that you really don't have to care about them. This is like being upset that people buy action figures of Jason Voorhees or make yaoi doujins featuring Toru Adachi. Making such a character into a cute cat plush contributes just as much to that reduction of their characters. No, it does not. I can totally separate Jimmy in the context of the events of the game and Jimmy in the context of a fictional character in the real world. If your view of G-Man from Half-Life is tainted because of the memes, that's not the meme's fault, that's entirely on you. Making him a silly cat undermines the whole game and starts separating it from commentary to a fictional game where unfortunate things ensue. Good, because that's what the game is. It's fiction where unfortunate things ensue. Stop looking at it as way more than that, because the more you do that, the more your brain stops working. Some people have very inconsistent beliefs. There is nothing you could know about your rapist character that would make a difference big enough for you to treat them as a normal character. The context for this is the developers of the video game Mouthwashing making a meme of Jimmy going, "he's sorry." Jimmy's pretty much the villain of the game, and the things that he did are downright unspeakable. The developers made a meme of him going, "he's sorry," for all the things he did as a joke. It was an ironic joke, which is incredibly baffling that this moral policing of fictional characters is coming from someone with a profile picture of Hannibal freaking Lecter. You see how regardless of what I say, my profile picture is a human's face, and I personally don't say he's sorry for killing and eating people. Then why do you have him as a profile picture? Because you like a cannibal character? Then wouldn't that same logic apply to the people that buy plushies of Jimmy? Why is this the second time Hannibal fans try to moral police people? I would rather support a real cannibal than a fictional rapist or people who get off to them. You'd rather support a real cannibal than a fictional rapist. You do realize that Jimmy doesn't harm any real person, right? And you're saying that you'd rather support a real cannibal who does harm real people. You are in serious need of help.
There's something wrong with your brain.
I love how being anti-censorship is conditional to some people. Anti-harassment and anti-censorship, but it's just a community that supports illegal and immoral art. Illegal and immoral art? I want to remind you all that these ladies bought books where people screwed their uncles, animals, aliens, and the gays. These books were officially published and are sold in bookstores. They're definitely not illegal. If you think they're immoral, cry me a river and shove that morality back up your ass. We love anti-censorship, but if it's glorifying an abusive or toxic trope, it's not anti-censorship. That's disgusting. Wow. You are a complete and total fraud. Anti-censorship requires you to defend art that you find immoral and disgusting. If you cannot even do that, then you are definitely not anti-censorship. You are pro-censorship. We got plenty more fiction-related hooplas and the people that got outraged by it, but before we get to all that, if you like this video so far, don't forget to click the like button, comment, subscribe, and leave some tips through any of these means, including YouTube membership, links below. Thank you to all the sponsors this week, you're all fantastic. Florida always had some really interesting stories, especially in regards to fictional characters. Florida's Brevard School District has banned a yaoi boys love manga called Sasaki and Miyano, arguing that children would be exposed to age-inappropriate, obscene, explicit content. That explicit content being high school gays. Did you read the actual manga or watch the anime adaptation? No! Of course, typical moral guardians not inspecting the source material. I did read the manga, and I stopped reading after 6 chapters in. It's not because I don't like yaoi. I like plenty of doujins featuring those. It's because reading through 6 chapters of that manga is like being constantly spoon-fed with hundreds of candies. It is such a saccharinely sweet, innocent, and wholesome story about 2 guys slowly figuring out that they actually really like each other. The only controversial thing about this manga is that it's a gay couple. It would have been just as saccharinely sweet if the couple were straight. That being said, I do agree that this manga is more appropriate for 13 years and above, not kids below the age of 12. But then again, the same can be said to most shonen manga. Personally, I think schools and especially librarians have a duty to educate their children about these books and why they can or cannot read them. But that would require a lot of effort, time, and money, so I guess censoring them is the next best thing, right? These experiences can lead to struggles with porn, compulsive masturbation, sexual identity, shame, self-esteem, developing and maintaining healthy relationships. Bro, those are your jobs as parents to guide your kids or teens through them as they figure out all those things, especially when they're going out of puberty. Banning this book is not only not gonna help that, it just shows how completely irresponsible you are. What is genuinely baffling about this demand is this person then recommended Chainsaw Man as the first point of entry of other books to recommend. Chainsaw Man, the manga where blood and gore is a regular occurrence. The manga where the first main character is a horny bastard who wants to touch women's titties. The manga where the second main character sexually assaulted the first. Great recommendation for kids below the age of 12. 10 out of 10. The rest of the recommendations are okay, at least, but I really don't understand why the first thing that popped up in this parent's head when recommending books to children is freaking Chainsaw Man. Completely wholesome and overly saccharine gay romance is not okay, but blood, dismemberment, and gore to an insanely hellish extent is perfectly fine? No wonder why kids these days are troubled. Some people really overestimate the capabilities of fiction. The fiction cannot be propaganda crowd has to be one of the stupidest groups of people I have ever encountered. Well, propaganda is a lot of times fictional, so saying that fiction cannot be propaganda is like saying ice cannot be water. So, no, I don't agree with that notion either, but I think what most people are trying to say with that sentence is that fiction can be an effective propaganda, which is not always the case. Fiction can also plant ideas, which is why we use it to teach messages to children. Yes, that doesn't mean it always works. Blue's Clues tried to plant the idea that I can have envelopes that contain videos, or that I can shove whatever writing tools I got inside the notebook's spine. Turns out only some pens and pencils work, but not all of them. Let's talk about incest. Quite a leap for a topic, but sure. Fiction has completely warped how people perceived it. Yes, fiction has totally warped people's perception of incest. I, for one, read plenty of incest fiction where the son screws their mom, and my desire to screw my mom is absolutely zero. Truly, the dangers of incest fiction warping people's perceptions. That or they don't, so this is dumb. Some people even go as far as to defend it, not realizing its inherently abusive and pedophilic nature. Do you not realize that murder is also inherently harmful and even downright psychotic, and yet fiction features them all the time, glorifying them even? Just because something is inherently bad doesn't mean having them explored in fiction is also bad. The idea that incest is mainly step-siblings is not a pre-existing idea. That is something that we got entirely from fiction. I'm sorry, are you saying that incest of step-siblings are entirely from fiction? Step-siblings and blood-siblings incest happen in real life before fiction depicted them. What makes you think it's an entirely fictional concept? Are you utterly delusional? This person really overstates the effectiveness of propaganda. You all love to downplay the effectiveness of fiction as a propaganda-neutral tool, but then scream about censorship only because it affects your porn. I'm sorry, what?
I fail to recognize the correlation.
People enjoying fiction doesn't mean fiction is effective propaganda. The reason why the US and many other countries start with the censoring of books and art is because fiction is a very effective way to spread ideas. Actually, it's because the government doesn't like those ideas. They really don't care whether those ideas can spread effectively or not. They just don't want it to spread, period. The Indonesian government loves to do this, especially with the recent scandals. Fiction can teach critical thinking and acceptance towards all types of people, which is why the state is so keen on erasing books about and around minorities and the marginalized. That or the government is filled with bigots, assuming that they do those things. And I'm leaning on believing it is true to some extent, but they are perfectly fine with having kids learn that a chainsaw man exists, killing monsters full of blood and gore, and some crazy girl sexually assaulted him. All I'm saying is, we really shouldn't rely on fiction on teaching people critical thinking and acceptance towards all types of people. It can try to induce those ideas. Heck, this one was made in the late 40s, but it's still up to the parents, the environment, and everything else surrounding people in the real world that will determine what they really think about the real world. This person really overstates the effectiveness of fiction. The idea that the US was the best country in the world has spread internationally through mainly fiction, mainly Hollywood movies. That was not a pre-existing idea. Wow. This is straight up delusions. People do not believe America is the greatest country in the world because of fiction. They believe that America is a very powerful and influential country based on, I don't know, literally go outside, read some books, read the papers, listen to the radio, watch the TV. All these things exist even before the 21st century. America is a major player in the world news since forever. For God's sake, look at the size of the country on the globe. It is massive in both its size and influence of its culture to the whole world. Everything about America was already known by many even before the existence of Hollywood movies. Even Hollywood movies, some of the greatest of all times, they bash the idea of America being the greatest. You genuinely think that the idea of America being the greatest country in the world is spread through mainly fiction? Have you ever been outside? You all love to use the same stupid strawman conservatives like to use. I love how you specify conservatives as if they're the only people who think your takes are awful. No, military video games will not necessarily turn you into a mass murderer. No, the incest in fiction will not necessarily make you want to sexually abuse your siblings, but fiction will plant warped perceptions. Yes, like the perception that the idea of America being the greatest country in the world is spread through fiction. I have no idea how you got that warped perception, but I suspect that it has something to do with you consuming so much fiction that you genuinely don't know what the world is like outside. Fiction affects you so much that you think that it applies to everyone else. No, it doesn't. You're just delusional. And that's all for the video today. Here's a cat. Don't forget to check out my previous videos here. Click the like button, comment, subscribe, leave some tips, just $1 down below. And thanks for watching.